Hazel Morgan hit the porch boards hard enough to crack ribs if the stranger's boot had landed 2 inches closer. Bear Creek, Missouri, 1895. And the war sent every desperate man west looking for easy money. She rolled fast, grabbing the shotgun leaning by the doorframe, swinging it up as the man in the long duster stepped into the yard. Heavy silver spurs clinked twice before he stopped, hands loose at his sides, eyes flat and dead.
Easy now. I am not here for trouble.
Charles McAllister swung down from the saddle before his mare stopped moving, stepping between Hazel and the stranger with both palms out.
State your business, or ride on.
The stranger smiled without warmth, soft voice like oil over gravel. The man said he was looking for a saddlebag that got swapped at the stage stop yesterday. Brown leather with brass corners. Nothing valuable inside. Hazel kept the shotgun level, adrenaline making her hands steady.
Check the barn if you want. I do not have your bag.
The stranger's gaze slid past Charles to her face, lingering too long. He said she looked like someone who kept secrets, then turned and walked back to his horse with those spurs clinking soft and deliberate. Charles did not move until the rider disappeared down the dirt track toward town.
You always greet visitors with a loaded gun?
Only the ones who kick down my door before knocking.
She lowered the shotgun, realizing her hands were shaking now. Charles pulled off his hat, wiping dust from his brow, watching her with quiet assessment.
I came to talk about your land. Heard you might sell.
Who told you that?
Man at the general store said Hazel Morgan was saving for a ticket east and looking to unload this place before winter.
Hazel set the shotgun inside the door, stepping back so he could not crowd her.
I am not selling to a stranger who shows up the same day a man tries to rob me.
Fair enough. But I am not a stranger anymore. Charles McAllister, trapper out of the high country, looking for a place to winter stock before the snows come.
She crossed her arms, studying him. Tall, solid, patient the way men got when they spent years alone in the wilderness. His eyes were clear and direct. No calculation in them, just tired honesty.
You picked a bad day, Mr. McAllister.
Seems like you picked a bad week. Want to tell me why that man really came here?
Hazel hesitated, then stepped aside, nodding toward the house.
Come inside. I will make coffee and explain why you should ride back the way you came.
Inside the small main room, she lit the stove and filled the pot while Charles stood by the window, watching the track. She pulled the brown leather saddlebag from under the table and dropped it on the wooden surface between them.
I picked this up yesterday at the stage stop. Mine looked identical. I did not realize the swap until I got home and opened it.
Charles moved to the table, flipping the bag open. Inside were neatly bundled paper packets, each sealed with wax, and a ledger filled with names, dates, and amounts in tight script.
Laudanum. Someone is running product through the territory.
The ledger has a name at the top. Kincaid Grimshaw, chemist in town. Half the entries are marked paid. The other half are debts.
Charles flipped pages, frowning.
These debts are not small. Grimshaw is lending money against land, collecting when people cannot pay. Your name is in here.
I know. I borrowed last spring to fix the barn roof. I paid it back in June.
Charles tapped the page.
Says here, you still owe $200. Due next week.
That is a lie. I have the receipt.
She grabbed a tin box from the shelf, pulling out a folded paper, smoothing it on the table. Charles compared the receipt to the ledger entry jaw tightening.
He is running a double set of books. One official, one real. If you cannot prove you paid, he takes the land.
And if I can prove it, he sends someone to make sure I do not talk.
Charles looked at her, then at the door.
That man with the spurs.
Grimshaw wants this bag back before anyone sees what is inside. If he knows I have it, he will come for it tonight.
Then, we do not give him the chance. We take this to the sheriff, right now.
Hazel shook her head, bitter laugh escaping.
The sheriff is in Grimshaw's pocket. Half the town owes him money or medicine. No one will stand against him.
What about the federal marshal? There is a circuit judge due in 3 days.
3 days is too long. Grimshaw will move faster than that.
Charles picked up the ledger, turning it over in his hands.
Then, we make him move on our terms. We let him think you still have the bag, draw him out, and catch him dirty.
That is insane. He will kill us both.
Or, we take him down and clear your name before he steals your land.
Hazel stared at him, heart pounding.
Why would you help me? You do not even know me.
I know land theft when I see it, and I know a fight worth taking.
She wanted to argue, but the steel in his voice made her pause. He was not bluffing, and he was not scared.
If we do this, we do it smart. No hero nonsense.
Agreed. What is your plan?
Hazel grabbed the coffee pot, pouring 2 cups, mind racing.
Grimshaw will send someone tonight to search the place. We let them find a decoy bag, make them think they got what they came for. Meanwhile, we hide the real ledger and take it to the judge when he arrives.
And if Grimshaw does not believe the decoy?
Then we run.
Charles smiled, slow and approving.
I like the way you think.
They spent the afternoon rigging the decoy, filling an identical bag with worthless papers, and setting it under the bed, where it looked hidden, but not too hidden. Hazel worked fast, hands steady now that she had a plan. But every time she glanced at Charles, her pulse kicked up. He moved through her space like he belonged there, checking windows, testing doors, never crowding her, but always close enough to matter. When the sun dropped low, painting the lake orange and gold, he caught her wrist as she reached for the coffee pot again.
You need to eat something, not just drink coffee.
I am fine.
You are running on nerves. Sit.
She sat, surprised when he pulled bread and dried meat from his saddlebag, setting it between them.
Eat. You will need your strength tonight.
Hazel tore off a piece of bread, watching him across the table.
You are bossy for a man who showed up uninvited.
You are stubborn for a woman who needs help.
I have been handling things alone for 2 years. I do not need a man to save me.
Good. I am not here to save you. I am here to help you fight.
Something shifted in her chest, sharp and unexpected. She looked away, chewing slowly.
Why did you really come here, Charles?
Told you. I need a place to winter stock.
You could buy land anywhere. Why mine?
He was quiet for a long moment, then leaned back, studying her.
Because the man at the store said you were tough and honest and did not take nonsense from anyone. Sounded like someone I could do business with.
And now?
Now I think he undersold you.
Heat crept up her neck, and she hated how much she liked the weight of his gaze.
Flattery will not get you a discount.
Was not trying for one.
The silence stretched, comfortable and charged at once, broken only by the creak of the house settling and the distant call of a night bird. Then, hoofbeats echoed from the track. Slow and deliberate. And Charles was on his feet, hand on his revolver.
Get down.
Hazel dropped behind the table, grabbing the shotgun. Charles moved to the window, peering through the gap in the curtain.
2 riders. One is your friend with the spurs.
Who is the other?
Cannot tell. They are staying back in the shadows.
The hoofbeats stopped near the barn. Voices murmured low, too far to hear words. Hazel's heart hammered against her ribs.
What are they doing?
Waiting. Watching the house.
Minutes crawled past. Then a third rider appeared from the direction of town, moving fast. Charles swore under his breath.
That is Grimshaw. I saw his picture on a wanted notice last year in Denver. Chemist my eye. He is a card sharp and a con man.
The 3 men dismounted, and Grimshaw's voice carried clear across the yard, soft and calm. Grimshaw called out that he knew she had his property, and if she returned it now, no one would get hurt. Hazel glanced at Charles, who shook his head sharply.
Do not answer. Let them make the first move.
The men spread out, one heading for the barn, one circling toward the back door. Grimshaw and the spur wearer staying near the porch. Hazel's hands were slick on the shotgun.
They are going to search the place.
Let them. We need them inside to make this work.
The back door rattled, then splintered open with a crash. Hazel flinched, but stayed low. Heavy boots stomped through the kitchen, tearing through cupboards. Charles touched her shoulder, steady pressure, and nodded toward the bedroom.
They will find the decoy in 30 seconds. When they do, we move.
A shout from the bedroom, triumphant. The man emerged holding the decoy bag high. The man yelled that he had it. Grimshaw's voice floated back. Calm and pleased, Grimshaw told them to bring it out and burn the house. No witnesses. Hazel's blood turned to ice.
They are going to kill us anyway.
Not if we leave first. Back window. Now.
Charles grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the small window at the rear of the main room. He shoved it open, boosting her through, then followed, landing light beside her in the tall grass. They ran low and fast toward the lake, reeds closing around them as flames licked up the side of the house behind them. Water soaked through Hazel's boots as they splashed into the shallows, reeds scratching her arms. Behind them, shouts rang out as the men realized the house was empty. Charles pulled her deeper until the water reached their knees, then crouched behind a thick stand of cattails.
Stay quiet. They will search the perimeter first.
They burned my house.
Her voice cracked. Rage and grief tangled together. Charles squeezed her hand, hard.
I know. We will make them pay. But first, we survive.
Hoofbeats circled the property, torchlights sweeping over the reeds. Hazel pressed against Charles, heart slamming, his arm coming around her shoulders to keep her still. His breath was warm against her temple, steady and even, and she focused on that instead of the fire consuming everything she owned. The riders passed within 10 feet, so close she could hear the jingle of spurs, then moved on toward the barn. Charles waited until the sound faded before pulling back slightly, looking down at her.
You still have the real ledger?
Hazel patted the oilcloth bundle tucked inside her blouse, nodding. He smiled, fierce and approving.
Then, we have everything we need. Come on.
They waded parallel to the shore, using the reeds for cover, until the house was a distant orange glow behind them. Charles led her onto dry ground near a rocky outcrop, then turned, scanning the darkness.
We need horses and supplies. There's a line shack about 5 miles north. Belongs to a friend. We can hole up there until the judge arrives.
5 miles on foot in the dark with Grimshaw hunting us.
You have a better idea?
Town. We go straight to town, find someone who will stand with us, force a confrontation before Grimshaw can cover his tracks.
Town is where Grimshaw has power. We will be dead before sunrise.
Or we will have witnesses and protection. He cannot kill us in front of the whole town.
Charles stared at her, then shook his head, half laughing.
You are either brilliant or reckless.
Both. Let's go.
They cut east through open country, moving fast and low, the night air hot and dry against their faces. Hazel's skirt caught on brush twice, and the second time Charles stopped, pulling a knife from his belt.
Hold still.
He sliced the fabric to mid-calf, efficient and unbothered, then straightened, meeting her eyes.
Easier to run now.
I liked that skirt.
I will buy you a new one when this is over.
The casual promise made her chest tighten. She looked away, scanning the horizon.
How far to town?
3 miles if we cut through the canyon pass.
That is where they will expect us to go.
Which is why we go over the ridge instead. Harder climb, but safer.
They started up the slope, rocks loose under their boots, thorny brush clawing at their clothes. Hazel's legs burned, but she kept pace, refusing to slow. Halfway up, Charles caught her elbow, steadying her when a stone shifted under her foot.
Careful. Break an ankle out here, and we are done.
I am fine.
He did not let go, and she did not pull away. They reached the top together, breathing hard, and looked down at the scattered lights of Bear Creek below. Smoke rose from chimneys, lanterns glowing warm in windows, peaceful and oblivious.
Looks so quiet from up here.
It will not be quiet long. Ready?
No. But let's go anyway.
They descended the far side, faster now, gravity pulling them toward the edge of town. They hit the main street, near the livery, ducking into the shadows between buildings. Charles scanned the street, frowning.
Too many people still awake. Grimshaw will have eyes everywhere.
Then we do not hide. We walk straight to the saloon and make noise.
That is your plan? Make noise?
People protect what they can see. If we are loud and public, Grimshaw cannot touch us without exposing himself.
Charles looked at her for a long beat, then grinned.
You are definitely reckless. I like it.
They stepped into the street, walking fast and deliberate toward the saloon. Heads turned, whispers following them. Hazel kept her chin up, ignoring the stares, feeling the weight of the ledger against her ribs. Charles stayed close, hand resting casual on his revolver. They pushed through the saloon doors into noise and lamplight, every face turning toward them. Hazel raised her voice, clear and carrying.
I need to speak to anyone who has done business with Kincaid Grimshaw.
Silence dropped like a stone. A man at the bar shifted uncomfortably. A woman near the back stood, eyes hard. The woman said she paid Grimshaw last month, but he claimed she still owed. Another man spoke up, same story. Then another. Hazel pulled the ledger from her blouse, holding it high.
He has been running 2 sets of books, stealing land from people who already paid. I have proof.
The crowd murmured, anger rippling through the room. Then the doors banged open, and Grimshaw walked in, flanked by the man with the spurs and two others. His voice was soft, pleasant. As always, Grimshaw said Hazel was a liar and a thief who stole his property and burned her own house for the insurance. He looked at the crowd with dead eyes and said anyone who believed her would regret it. Hazel's stomach dropped as the room went silent again, fear choking the anger. Charles stepped forward, putting himself between her and Grimshaw.
You are done, Grimshaw. We are taking this ledger to the federal judge, and you are going to prison.
Grimshaw smiled, and his hand moved toward his coat. The spur-wearer drew first, faster than Hazel expected, and Charles shoved her sideways as the shot cracked through the room. She hit the floor hard, ears ringing, scrambling behind an overturned table. Charles returned fire, bullets splintering the doorframe beside Grimshaw's head. The saloon erupted into chaos. People diving for cover, tables crashing. Hazel crawled toward the bar, ledger clutched tight, as boots pounded past her. A hand grabbed her ankle, and she kicked hard, connecting with bone, then rolled and came up swinging. The spur-wearer loomed over her, gun raised, and she threw a whiskey bottle at his face. Glass shattered. He stumbled back, and Charles was there, landing a punch that dropped the man cold.
Move, now!
They ran for the back exit, Grimshaw shouting orders behind them. Out into the alley, then up onto the wooden sidewalk, boots slipping on dusty boards. Gunfire followed, bullets chewing wood. Charles pulled her left, then right, zigzagging between buildings. They hit the back staircase of the general store and took it 2 steps at a time, bursting onto the roof. The roof was flat and tarred, littered with crates and forgotten tools. Hazel skidded to a stop at the edge, looking down at the 15-foot drop to the awning below.
We are trapped.
Not yet. Jump when I say.
He grabbed a crate, hurling it at the men climbing the stairs, buying seconds. Then he took her hand again, backing toward the edge.
On 3. 1. 2.
The awning tore under their weight, canvas ripping with a sound like thunder, and they hit the ground rolling. Hazel's shoulder slammed into packed dirt, stars exploding behind her eyes. But Charles hauled her up before she could catch her breath. They ran again, lungs burning, legs shaking. Behind them, Grimshaw's voice rose, calm and relentless. Grimshaw told his men to cut them off at the bridge, burn the bridge if they had to, just stop them. Hazel's mind raced. The bridge was the only way north to the circuit judge. If Grimshaw destroyed it, they were stuck.
We have to beat them to the bridge.
It is half a mile. We will never make it on foot.
Then, we do not go on foot.
She veered toward the livery, Charles following without question. Inside, horses stamped and snorted, disturbed by the noise. Hazel grabbed a bridle, slipping it over the nearest mare's head. No time for a saddle. Charles did the same, then boosted her up before swinging onto his own mount.
Can you ride bareback?
I grew up on a farm. Hold on.
They kicked the horses into a gallop, bursting from the livery into the street. Shouts erupted behind them, more gunfire, but they were moving too fast now, hooves pounding dirt, wind tearing at their hair. The bridge loomed ahead, dark and narrow, spanning the dry creek bed. Torchlight flickered at the far end. Grimshaw's men were already there, one holding a lit torch to the wooden support beams.
They are burning it.
Then, We go through before it falls.
Hazel leaned low over the mare's neck, urging more speed. The bridge shuddered as flames caught, smoke billowing. They hit the planks at full gallop, wood cracking beneath them, heat searing the air. Halfway across, a beam gave way with a groan, the bridge tilting sickeningly. Hazel's mare stumbled, and for one terrible moment she felt herself sliding. Then Charles was there. His horse pressed against hers, steadying her. They cleared the far end as the bridge collapsed into the creek bed behind them, a roar of fire and splintering wood. Grimshaw's men were cut off on the other side, silhouetted against the flames, shouting curses. Hazel pulled her mare to a halt, chest heaving, and looked back at the burning wreckage.
We did it.
We bought time. That is all. Grimshaw will find another way across.
Then, we keep moving.
They rode hard through the night, following the north trail by starlight. The horses were lathered and blowing by the time Charles finally slowed, guiding them off the trail into a grove of cottonwoods near a shallow stream. Hazel slid down, legs wobbling, and leaned against the mare's shoulder.
How much farther to the judge?
20 miles, maybe more. We will reach him by tomorrow night, if we do not stop.
We have to stop. The horses need rest.
I know.
He led the horses to the stream, letting them drink, then unsaddled his mount and laid the blanket on the ground. Hazel sank onto it, every muscle screaming. Charles sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed.
You did good back there.
I almost got us killed.
You kept us alive. There is a difference.
She laughed, shaky and breathless.
I have never been shot at before tonight.
You handled it better than most men I have seen.
I was terrified.
So was I.
She looked at him, surprised. He met her gaze, unflinching.
Fear is not weakness. It is what you do with it that matters.
Hazel swallowed hard, throat tight.
Why are you really doing this, Charles? You could have ridden away at any point.
Could have. Did not want to.
Why?
He was quiet for a long moment, then reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, fingers lingering against her cheek.
Because you are the kind of person worth standing with, and because I have spent too many years alone in the mountains, and I am tired of it.
Her breath caught. His hand was warm, calloused, steady. She leaned into it without thinking, and his thumb brushed her jaw, feather light.
Hazel,
Yes?
if we survive this, I would like to buy your land, and I would like you to stay on it with me.
Her heart slammed into her ribs. Hope and fear tangled so tight she could not tell them apart.
You do not even know me.
I know enough. I know you fight for what is yours. I know you do not quit. I know I have never met anyone like you.
She wanted to kiss him, wanted it so badly her hands shook. But before she could move, a twig snapped in the darkness beyond the trees. Charles was on his feet instantly, gun drawn, pulling her behind him. A voice called out from the shadows, familiar and cold. Grimshaw said he admired their determination, but it was time to stop running. He stepped into the firelight, flanked by 4 men, all armed. Hazel's stomach sank.
How did you find us?
Grimshaw smiled, tapping his temple. He said he knew every trail in the territory, and he knew Charles McAllister's reputation for using old trapper routes. He looked at Charles with dead eyes and said it was a shame to waste a good man on a lost cause. Charles did not lower his gun.
The only lost cause here is you, Grimshaw. That ledger is going to the judge whether you kill us or not.
Grimshaw shrugged. He said he would take his chances, and nodded to his men. They spread out, circling. Hazel's mind raced, panic rising. They were outnumbered and trapped. Then Charles did something insane. He fired his gun into the air, 3 rapid shots, the sound cracking through the night like thunder. The horses bolted, crashing through the men, scattering them. Charles grabbed Hazel's hand and ran, pulling her into the dense undergrowth. Branches whipped her face, roots snagged her boots, but she did not slow. Behind them, Grimshaw shouted orders, furious now. They broke into a clearing, and Charles pulled her down behind a fallen log, breathing hard.
They will circle back. We have maybe 2 minutes.
We are out of options.
Not yet. Give me the ledger.
She handed it over, confused. He pulled a match from his pocket, striking it against the log.
What are you doing?
Insurance.
He tore a blank page from the back of the ledger, scribbling fast by matchlight, then folded it and shoved it into her boot.
If they catch me, you run. Get that page to the judge. It has enough names to start an investigation.
I am not leaving you.
You will, if I tell you to.
You do not get to decide that.
He grabbed her face in both hands, fierce and desperate.
Hazel, listen to me. If we both die, Grimshaw wins. If you live, you can finish this. Promise me.
Tears blurred her vision, hot and furious.
I promise. But you are not dying tonight.
Good. Then let's make sure of it.
He kissed her, hard and fast, then pulled back before she could react. Footsteps crashed through the brush. Close now. Charles stood, drawing his gun, and stepped into the open.
Grimshaw, let's settle this.
Hazel stayed hidden, heart in her throat, as Grimshaw emerged from the trees, flanked by his men. He looked at Charles with mild interest. Grimshaw said he respected the gesture, but it changed nothing. Charles smiled, cold and sharp.
It changes everything. Because while you were chasing us, my partner rode to the federal camp and told them everything. They are on their way here now.
Grimshaw's expression flickered, just for a second, and Hazel realized Charles was bluffing. But it was a good bluff, confident and specific, and Grimshaw hesitated. That hesitation was enough. A voice boomed from the darkness, authoritative and commanding. The voice ordered everyone to drop their weapons. Federal Marshal, and 4 men in dark coats stepped into the clearing, rifles raised. Hazel's chest nearly collapsed with relief. She stood, ledger clutched tight, and walked to Charles's side. He glanced at her, grinning.
Told you I had a plan.
You are a terrible liar.
But a lucky one.
Grimshaw and his men were disarmed and restrained. The marshal's deputies efficient and businesslike. The marshal himself, a lean man with silver hair and a weathered face, took the ledger from Hazel, flipping through it with grim satisfaction. The marshal said this was exactly what they needed, thanked her for her courage, and said Grimshaw would stand trial in 3 days when the circuit judge arrived. He looked at Charles and asked if he was the trapper who sent word about the land scheme. Charles nodded.
Figured it was worth a gamble.
The marshal smiled. He said good gamble, shook Charles's hand, and told him to get some rest. They would need to testify. Then, He and his men led Grimshaw and his crew away into the night, leaving Hazel and Charles alone in the clearing. The silence felt enormous. Hazel turned to Charles, pulse still racing.
You sent word to the marshal?
2 days ago, when I first saw your name in that ledger. I did not know you yet, but I knew something was wrong.
Hazel stared at him, something fierce and soft rising in her chest.
You did that for me before you even knew me?
I did it because it was right. Getting to know you was just the best part.
She stepped closer, hands shaking from adrenaline and relief, and something deeper. He steadied her by the elbows, gentle and sure.
You all right?
I am now.
He smiled, and she kissed him. Slow and certain this time. No danger chasing them. No gunfire in the distance. Just the two of them. The night warm around them. The lake glittering beyond the trees. When they pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers, breathing steady.
So what happens now?
Now we go home. And in 3 days, we watch Grimshaw face justice.
And after that?
She looked up at him, her heart full and fearless.
After that, we figure out what home means. Together.
He grinned, wide and genuine, and took her hand. They walked back through the reeds toward the farmhouse, the moon bright overhead, the air thick with promise. The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended calm. Hazel and Charles gave their testimony to the marshal, who assured them the case was airtight. The town buzzed with rumor and shock as word spread about Grimshaw's scheme. Some folks were grateful. Others were embarrassed they had been fooled. But everyone agreed Hazel Morgan had shown more spine than most. Charles stayed. He did not ride out or drift on. He helped Hazel repair the fence Grimshaw's men had damaged, hauled water from the lake, and sat with her on the porch in the evenings while the crickets sang. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other in the quiet moments. On the 3rd day, the circuit judge arrived, a stern man in a black coat who wasted no time. The trial was held in the town hall, packed with curious onlookers. Hazel sat in the front row, Charles beside her, their fingers laced together. Grimshaw stood at the defendant's table, calm and composed, but his eyes were dead. The prosecution presented the ledger, the testimony, the corroborating evidence from the marshal's investigation. The defense offered weak deflections. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. When they returned, the foreman read the verdict. The foreman said guilty on all counts. The room erupted in murmurs and gasps. Grimshaw did not react. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison and added that all fraudulent land claims would be voided and returned to their rightful owners. Hazel's breath caught. She looked at Charles, eyes wide.
That means the farm.
It is yours again. Free and clear.
She laughed, a choked, disbelieving sound, and buried her face in his shoulder. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, while the courtroom slowly emptied. When they finally stood and walked outside, the afternoon sun was blazing, the sky a perfect, endless blue. The town felt different now, lighter somehow, as if a shadow had lifted. They walked down the main street together, past the general store and the saloon, past the telegraph office and the blacksmith's forge. People nodded to them. tipped their hats, offered quiet congratulations. When they reached the edge of town, Hazel stopped and turned to Charles.
I do not know what comes next. I have spent so long just trying to survive, I forgot what it feels like to plan for something good.
So let's figure it out together. One day at a time.
She smiled, and he took her hand, and they walked the long road back to the farmhouse. The sun was setting by the time they reached the lake. The water turned gold and copper in the fading light. They stood on the bank, the reeds whispering around them, the air warm and still. Hazel turned to face him, her heart steady and sure.
I want you to stay, not just for a few days. I want you to stay and build something with me. A real home.
I have been waiting for you to ask.
He kissed her, slow and deep, and she leaned into him, her hands curling into his shirt. When they finally pulled back, the stars were beginning to appear, bright and close in the darkening sky. Charles brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle.
I love you, Hazel Morgan.
Her breath caught, her chest tight with joy.
I love you too, Charles McAllister.
They stood there together, the lake at their feet, the town behind them, the future stretching out wide and open. For the first time in years, Hazel felt like she could breathe, like she could hope, like she had found something worth fighting for, and someone worth keeping. And as the night settled around them, warm and endless, she knew they would face whatever came next together, side by side, with fire and faith, and a love that had been tested and proven true. The days that followed were different. They worked the land together, mending what had been broken, planting what could grow. Charles proved to be a steady hand with tools and a patient teacher. Hazel discovered she liked having someone to share the work with, someone who made her laugh when the chores felt endless. They spent mornings hauling water and fixing fences, afternoons resting in the shade of the porch, and evenings walking the lake shore, talking about dreams they had stopped believing in. One night, about a week after the trial, Charles built a fire down by the water. They sat close, watching the flames dance, the stars scattered overhead like scattered seed. Hazel leaned against his shoulder, content and quiet.
I have been thinking.
About what?
About that ticket east you mentioned. The one you were saving for.
She was silent for a moment, then shook her head. I do not need it anymore. This is where I belong. With you. With this place.
Good. Because I was not planning on letting you go.
She laughed, warm and genuine, and he kissed the top of her head. The fire crackled softly, and the night stretched on, peaceful and full. They stayed there until the embers died down, then walked back to the farmhouse hand in hand. The future no longer something to fear, but something to build, brick by brick, day by day, together. She laughed softly, leaning into his touch.
Then I suppose we should start planning what comes next.
I thought you had a ticket east.
I did. But I think I would rather stay here and build something worth keeping.
He kissed her again, slower this time, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise. When they finally pulled apart, the sky was fully dark, stars scattered thick overhead. They walked back to the farmhouse hand in hand, the warm glow from the windows spilling out onto the porch. Inside, Hazel lit the lamps while Charles checked the windows and doors, making sure everything was secure. The day's danger still lingered in her bones, but here, In this quiet space they had fought to protect, she felt safe. Charles joined her by the table, and she poured them both water from the pitcher. They sat across from each other, exhausted, but content.
What will you do after the trial?
Stay, if you will have me. I have been moving too long. It would be good to stop somewhere that feels like home.
And if I say yes?
Then, I will help you rebuild this place. Fix the fence. Clear the land. Plant whatever you want to plant. And when the work is done, we will sit on that porch and watch the sunset like we earned it.
She reached across the table, taking his hand.
Then yes. Stay.
He smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made her chest ache with how much she wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted the life they could build together. They sat there for a while, talking quietly about the trial, about what they would say to the judge, about how they would manage the land once it was truly theirs. The conversation drifted, easy and comfortable. The kind of talk that comes when two people trust each other completely. Eventually, Charles stood, stretching his shoulders.
You should get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be long.
What about you?
I will sleep on the porch. Make sure no one comes calling uninvited.
Charles, you do not have to do that.
I know. But I want to.
She stood, crossing the small room to where he waited by the door. She reached up, resting her hand against his jaw, feeling the rough stubble under her palm.
Thank you. For everything.
You do not need to thank me. You saved yourself, Hazel. I just made sure you did not have to do it alone.
She kissed him, soft and lingering, then stepped back before she lost her nerve.
Good night, Charles.
Good night, Hazel.
He slipped outside, closing the door gently behind him. And she stood there for a moment, heart full and racing. Then she turned, blew out the lamps, and climbed into bed, exhaustion pulling her under almost instantly. She dreamed of open fields and clear skies, of building something that would last, of a future that felt real and solid and hers. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the window, warm and bright. She dressed quickly, splashing her face with water from the basin, and stepped outside. Charles was already up, standing by the corral, checking the gate. He turned when he heard her, smiling.
Morning.
Morning. Did you sleep at all?
Enough. You?
Better than I have in weeks.
They walked together to the well, drawing water and washing up, falling into an easy rhythm that felt natural, like they had been doing this for years. After a simple breakfast of bread and dried fruit, they saddled the horses and rode into Bear Creek together. The town was quiet in the early morning light, but word of Grimshaw's arrest had already spread. People watched them as they passed, some with curiosity, some with grudging respect. At the marshal's office, they gave their statements, recounting everything that had happened. The ledger, the chase, the confrontation. The marshal listened carefully, making notes, and assured them their testimony would be critical at the trial. When they finished, he shook their hands and told them to stay close until the judge arrived. Outside, Hazel took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had in months.
It is really over.
Almost. One more step.
The trial was held 3 days later in the town hall, a cramped wooden building that smelled of dust and old paper. The circuit judge, a stern man with a sharp gaze, presided over the proceedings with brisk efficiency. Hazel and Charles testified, their words clear and steady, and the ledger was entered into evidence. Grimshaw sat in the defendant's chair, silent and cold, his soft voice only breaking once to claim he had been acting within his legal rights. The judge was unmoved. When the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, a murmur of satisfaction rippled through the crowd. Grimshaw was sentenced to 10 years, his assets seized, and the fraudulent land claims voided. Hazel's deed was returned to her, stamped and sealed, official and uncontestable. She held it in her hands, staring at the ink and paper that represented everything she had fought for, and felt tears prick her eyes.
You did it.
We did it.
They walked out of the town hall together, into the bright afternoon sun, and made their way down to the riverbank. The town was behind them now, quiet and distant, and the water stretched out before them, calm and clear. They stood side by side, looking out over the lake, the reeds swaying gently in the breeze.
So what now?
Now we go home. And we build.
Sounds like a good plan.
She turned to him, reaching for his hand, and he took it, pulling her close. They stood there at the water's edge, the sun warm on their faces, the future open and uncertain and theirs. He kissed her, slow and sure, and she kissed him back, feeling the weight of everything they had survived settle into something solid and real. When they finally pulled apart, she smiled up at him, eyes bright.
Let's go home, Charles.
Let's go home, Hazel.
They mounted their horses and rode back toward the farmhouse, side by side, the town shrinking behind them, and the lake shimmering ahead. The land stretched out before them, wide and welcoming. And for the first time in a long time, Hazel felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Not running, not hiding, not fighting. Just home. The days that followed the trial felt like waking from a long fever. Hazel threw herself into the work of restoring the farm, repairing fences, clearing the overgrown fields, and patching the roof where rain had seeped through. Charles worked beside her, steady and tireless, his hands quick and capable with hammer and saw. They fell into a rhythm, easy and natural, rising with the sun and working until dusk painted the sky gold and orange. In the evenings, they sat on the porch, watching the lake reflect the last light, and talked about plans for the coming season. She wanted to plant corn and beans, maybe raise chickens if they could afford the stock. He suggested they build a better barn, reinforce the well, and clear a path down to the water for easier access. They debated and laughed and made lists, their voices mingling with the sound of crickets and distant frogs.
You know, I never thought I would be doing this.
Building a farm?
Building anything. I thought I would just survive, keep my head down, and maybe one day leave. But now, I do not want to leave.
Good. Because I am not going anywhere either.
She leaned against him, shoulder to shoulder, and felt the warmth of his presence settle into her bones. It was not just desire anymore, though that still sparked between them at unexpected moments, a quick touch or a lingering glance. It was something deeper, a trust that had been forged in fire and tested by fear. She knew him now, knew the quiet strength that hid behind his wry smiles, the patience that never wavered even when the world turned dangerous. And he knew her, knew the wildfire that burned beneath her careful exterior, the determination that refused to break even when everything seemed lost. They fit together. Not perfectly, but in a way that felt real and lasting.
What are you thinking about?
How lucky I am.
Lucky? You fought tooth and nail for this.
I know. But I am still lucky. Because you were here,
He turned to her, his hand finding hers, his thumb brushing over her knuckles.
I am the lucky one. Hazel.
She kissed him then, soft and slow, and felt his arms come around her, holding her close. The night was warm and still, the stars scattered bright overhead, and for a moment the world felt impossibly wide and impossibly safe. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his, breathing him in.
stay with me. Not just for now. Stay.
I already decided that. The day I rode back to find you.
Good.
The next morning, they rode into town together to pick up supplies. The general store was busy, filled with farmers restocking after the roundup and merchants haggling over prices. Hazel moved through the aisles, picking out nails, seed packets, and a new length of rope, while Charles negotiated with the clerk over the cost of lumber. She caught his eye across the store, and he winked, making her smile. It felt strange and wonderful to walk through town without fear, without the weight of Grimshaw's threat hanging over her. People nodded to her now, respectful and friendly, and a few even stopped to congratulate her on the trial's outcome. She thanked them, polite but reserved, still not entirely comfortable with the attention. Charles joined her at the counter, carrying a crate of tools, and set it down with a grunt.
Got everything?
Almost. I need to stop at the land office and file the deed officially.
I will come with you.
They walked across the street to the small office where the clerk, a balding man with ink-stained fingers, greeted them with a nod. Hazel handed over her deed and watched as he stamped it, signed it, and entered it into the official registry. When he handed it back, freshly sealed, she felt a surge of emotion so strong it nearly knocked her over. This was hers. Truly, legally, undeniably hers. No one could take it from her now. The clerk said, "Congratulations, Miss, you earned it," and she thanked him, voice thick. Outside, Charles took her hand and squeezed it gently.
How does it feel?
Like I can breathe again.
Good. Now let's get back and put that land to use.
They loaded the supplies onto the wagon and headed home, the sun climbing higher, the air thick with the scent of dry grass and warm earth. As they rode, Hazel found herself thinking about the future in a way she never had before. Not as something to survive, but as something to build. She pictured the farm thriving, the fields green and full, the house repaired and welcoming. She pictured mornings spent working side by side with Charles, evenings on the porch, winters by the fire. She pictured a life, real and solid, rooted in this place she had fought so hard to keep, and for the first time, she let herself believe it was possible.
You are smiling.
I am happy.
Good. You deserve to be.
When they reached the farmhouse, they unloaded the supplies and set to work immediately. Charles began framing out the new barn, while Hazel worked on clearing the vegetable garden, pulling weeds, and turning the soil. The work was hard and sweaty, but it felt good, purposeful. She paused to wipe her forehead, glancing over at Charles, and caught him watching her with a look that made her heart skip.
What?
Nothing. Just thinking.
About what?
About how I got the best deal of my life when I decided to stay.
She laughed, shaking her head, and threw a clod of dirt at him. He dodged, grinning, and came over to pull her into a kiss. Dusty and breathless and perfect. When they broke apart, she rested her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her palm.
We are going to make this work.
I know. We are.
That night they sat by the fire, tired and content, and talked until the stars came out. They spoke of crops and repairs, of neighbors and plans, of all the small and ordinary things that made up a life. And beneath it all, unspoken but understood, was the promise they had made to each other at the riverbank. To stay. To build. To be home together. Hazel leaned her head on Charles's shoulder, eyes drifting closed, and felt the last of her fear finally let go. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm that felt almost miraculous in its simplicity. They rose with the sun, worked side by side through the heat of the day, and rested in the cool of the evening. The barn took shape, beam by beam, and the garden began to flourish, rows of green pushing up through the dark soil. Hazel taught Charles the finer points of planting and harvest timing, and he showed her how to shore up the foundation and repair the sagging porch. They fell into an easy partnership, each filling in the gaps the other left, and the farmhouse began to feel less like a fragile refuge and more like a real home. One afternoon, as they were hammering boards onto the barn frame, a rider appeared on the road. Hazel tensed instinctively, but Charles touched her arm, calm and reassuring.
It is just the mail carrier.
The rider, a young man with a friendly face, pulled up and handed Hazel an envelope. She thanked him, puzzled, and opened it carefully. Inside was a letter from the land office, officially confirming her ownership and noting that all debts associated with the property had been cleared. Attached was a small note from the marshal, saying the seized assets from Grimshaw's operation had been redistributed to his victims, and she was entitled to a modest reimbursement. She stared at the paper, hardly believing it.
Charles, look at this.
He read it over her shoulder, then let out a low whistle.
That is justice.
It is more than that. It is a second chance.
She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her pocket, feeling a weight lift she had not even realized she was carrying. That evening, they celebrated with a simple meal on the porch, watching the sun set over the lake, the sky turning shades of pink and gold. Charles reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb tracing slow circles over her knuckles.
I have been thinking.
About what?
About asking you something.
Her heart sped up, but she kept her voice steady.
Then ask.
Hazel Morgan, would you let me stay here with you? Not as a hired hand or a partner in business, but as your husband?
She looked at him. This man who had stood beside her through fire and fear, who had fought for her when he had no reason to, who had chosen her every single day. Tears pricked her eyes, but she smiled, clear and certain.
Yes. Yes, I will.
He stood, pulling her up with him, and kissed her with a tenderness that made her knees weak. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers, breathing her in.
We will do this right. I will find a preacher, get the paperwork, make it official.
I do not need paperwork to know you are mine.
Maybe not, but I want the whole world to know you are mine too.
She laughed, wiping her eyes, and they stood there on the porch, holding each other as the last light faded from the sky. The next morning, Charles rode into town and returned with a preacher, a kindly older man who agreed to perform the ceremony the following Sunday. Hazel spent the intervening days cleaning the house and mending her best dress. A simple blue cotton that had seen better days, but still fit her well. Charles scrubbed up and borrowed a clean shirt from a neighbor. And when Sunday came, they stood together in the front room of the farmhouse, hands clasped, and spoke their vows. The preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Charles kissed her, slow and sure, while the afternoon sun streamed through the windows. It was small and quiet and perfect, and Hazel felt a joy so complete it seemed to fill every corner of her being. That night, they sat together on the porch steps, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, and watched the fireflies drift over the lake.
I never thought I would have this.
Neither did I.
What changed?
You did. You fought for it. And you let me fight for it with you.
She turned to look at him, eyes bright in the darkness.
I love you, Charles McAllister.
I love you too, Hazel McAllister.
They stayed there until the stars came out, wrapped in each other and the quiet certainty of what they had built together. The land stretched out around them, warm and alive, and the future felt wide open and entirely theirs. The days that followed settled into a rhythm that felt both new and ancient, as if they had always been meant to live this way. Hazel woke each morning to the sound of Charles moving quietly through the house, brewing coffee and checking the livestock. She would join him outside, and together they would work the land, side by side, their hands and hearts in sync. The vegetable garden began to flourish, green shoots pushing up through the dark soil. The new barn took shape, sturdy and strong, its frame rising against the blue sky. And slowly, steadily, the farmhouse transformed from a lonely outpost into a home. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun sink into the lake, Charles pulled a small wooden box from his pocket and handed it to her. She opened it carefully and found a simple gold ring inside, plain and perfect.
I know we already said our vows, but I wanted you to have this. Something you can wear every day and remember.
Charles, it is beautiful.
Not as beautiful as you.
She slipped the ring onto her finger, tears blurring her vision, and kissed him, soft and lingering. When she pulled back, she saw the same emotion reflected in his eyes, and she knew without words that this was forever. They sat there in the gathering dusk, fingers intertwined, and watched the first stars appear. The weeks turned into months, and the farm thrived under their care. Neighbors began to stop by, drawn by the sight of the repaired barn and the flourishing fields. Hazel and Charles became known in Bear Creek as the couple who had stood up to Grimshaw, and their story spread through the town like wildfire. People respected them, trusted them, and when harvest time came, several families offered to help bring in the crops. Hazel accepted gratefully, and the work became a celebration, with laughter and music and shared meals under the open sky. One afternoon in late autumn, as the air turned crisp and golden, Hazel stood at the edge of the lake, looking out over the water. Charles came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder.
What are you thinking about?
About how far we have come. About how close we came to losing everything.
But we did not lose it. We won.
We did. And it feels like a miracle.
Maybe it is. Or maybe it is just what happens when two stubborn people refuse to give up.
She laughed, leaning back into him and felt the warmth of his body against hers. The lake stretched out before them, calm and endless, and the sky above was a brilliant wash of orange and pink. She turned in his arms, looking up at him, and saw her whole future reflected in his eyes.
I want to stay here forever.
Then, we will.
Promise?
Promise.
They kissed, slow and deep, and the world around them seemed to fade away. When they finally pulled apart, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky awash in twilight. They walked back to the farmhouse hand in hand, the lights from the windows glowing warm and welcoming. Inside, the fire crackled in the hearth, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Hazel smiled, knowing that this, right here, was everything she had ever wanted. Not wealth or security or escape, but simply this: a place to belong, a person to love, and a life worth living. She squeezed Charles's hand, and he squeezed back, and together they stepped inside, closing the door on the past and opening it wide to the future.